everyone, and welcome into Week 5 of DFS. This is the Adjusted Line Play Report presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffmann. You can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. You can find myself on Twitter at Todzilla1337. And folks, today's show is brought to you again by Bang Energy, where you can fuel your destiny. Looking to get a bit more bang for your buck in DFS this year? Look no further than Bang Energy to fuel your destiny while watching the Adjusted Line Play Report presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite and hosted by yours truly, Todd Hoffmann. Bang Energy, fuel your destiny. Today's flavor, we got peach mango. Gonna open this guy up. It's 8 o'clock in the morning Central Time here, so I'm going to fuel our destiny on this Week 5 podcast. Again, that's peach mango. Very delicious. Great breakfast food. Gets you up in the morning. And as long as DFS is going on, we're going to have these energy drinks going on. Anyway, guys, obviously that's just a joke. I'm not sponsored by anyone, let alone Bang Energy or Rain or any of those guys. But I just wanted to give a quick recap over Week 4 before we get into the Week 5 slate. I hope you guys tuned in to the Week 4. It was a very successful week for me and the Adjusted Line Play Report. We were on kind of the Atlanta Falcons passing game. So Cordero Patterson, if you got any of him in there, you absolutely smashed. Terry McLaurin, David Montgomery, DJ Moore, all these guys that were winning you tournaments essentially last week were highly suggested on the Adjusted Line Play Report. I even believe I brought up Dawson Knox, who had 2 touchdowns at the tight end position. So hopefully you guys tuned in to the Week 4 one and won some money with me. If you did, leave a comment below. Otherwise, guys, please subscribe to Zilla Fantasy on YouTube. Give Zilla Fantasy a follow over on Twitter, and give myself a follow over on Twitter if you are looking to get super good fantasy advice. I did 2.5x my investments last week in DraftKings, and I made a little bit of money over on FanDuel last week as well. And again, these are tournaments, so they're not cash games where you're doubling up your money and only needing to finish in the top 45%. These are tournaments where you need to finish in the top 17, 18, 19, 20%, 21% sometimes. And if you don't, you're losing your money. And I was making money on both sites last week with this Adjusted Line Play Report. So with that said, for anybody who is new and not familiar with this, the Adjusted Line Play Report looks at Football Outsiders' adjusted line play metrics, where they look at the adjusted sack rate and kind of how people are doing in the run game on defense and on offense. And it pits how those teams are doing against each other, essentially on top of each other. So you can see here, New York and Dallas here, we have pass protection on offense for Dallas is 9. New York Giants pass rush is 30th. So the Giants are really bad at generating any sort of sacks on the quarterback that aren't, maybe 3rd and 20 when you expect to have a sack. Anyway, so that's kind of how this works. The red greens are very high mismatches that we can exploit here. And again, if you're new, this is very corollary. It starts out a little rough. As you go on through the year, you get more and more information, and this just becomes more and more accurate. So as we progress throughout the year, this is going to smash. I feel like this is an interesting week nonetheless. So let's get it underway. The way this is going to work, we're going to go through the highest game total and then just go on down from there, from the highest game total to the lowest game total, and see what we can garner from the adjusted line play here. And with that being said, we're going to hop into the New York Giants at Dallas Cowboys. That is the highest game total on the slate this week at 52 points. And I'm sorry I didn't adjust these Totals, I didn't look at the Vegas totals on Friday morning. These are all actually Tuesday afternoon totals, so they could have changed slightly from here. I apologize, I did not update those right away. And actually, let's get this so it's maybe less distracting. Let's get that nice bright green Zilla Fantasy Elite green going on the background there. All right, so New York Giants, they're going to move the ball a little bit better. So if we look on here, offensive pass protection 13 versus Dallas 21 in the pass rush. Giants run blocking is number 29, while Dallas is 23rd in the adjusted line yards for rushing. So Giants are pretty poor on the run blocking. Dallas is also pretty poor as far as stopping the run, but guess what? That's a little bit of a favor for Dallas on that end. The Giants just might find their rush game a little bit easier than normal, considering Dallas is poor there. But the Giants probably going to move the ball a little bit more effectively, a little bit more efficiently on the air attack here with the 13th on the pass protection. Dallas only 21 on generating pressure against the quarterback or getting after the quarterback there. So expect the Giants to move the ball through the air and maybe be a little bit more effective on the ground than they're used to. With that being said, this is the highest slate total for this week. You could run in Daniel Jones. Probably going to have a lineup or two with Daniel Jones in there on FanDuel, just because I think Dallas will be able to score a lot of points on the Giants. And we'll get into them after the Giants here. But I think the Giants are going to end up having to score a lot of points in an attempt to keep up with what Dallas is doing. So Daniel Jones definitely in play there. As far as the pass game, we do have a few injuries on the Giants wide receiving core. Sterling Shepard is out, or not out, but he's questionable. He didn't play last week, and same with Slate, and they're also questionable. So not exactly sure if they're going to play or not, but with that news, I would lean towards Golladay. He did have over 100 yards last week. Kadarius Toney also had, I believe, 6 or 7 receptions for 80-some yards. So Toney looked very electric out there last week. So those would be the two that I'm targeting as far as the receivers are concerned. Evan Engram is a very cheap tight end this week on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So you can look at him as a way to get different on GPPs. A smart thing to do, especially if you're looking to bring down a GPP, is correlate your tight end with that quarterback. So if you're throwing in a Danny Dimes, possibly run it back with Evan Engram there. Engram hasn't been producing mega fantasy numbers, but he does have the athleticism, if you can hold on to the ball, to actually put up, a solid fantasy week. So keep that in mind. Barkley always in play here, especially if the Giants are going to find the run game a little bit easier than they're used to. Barkley could be in play here, and he is always a threat out of the backfield with 6 receptions, I believe, last week. I don't know if it's 6 receptions or 6 targets, but he is in play as well within the aspect of just being a little bit more efficient than he's used to with this run blocking unit in front of him. Let's get on to the Dallas side of this matchup, which is the juicy end. We look number 1 in offensive run blocking for Dallas. That is absolutely amazing. Versus the Giants, number 29 defensive adjusted line yards. Expect Dallas to be able to absolutely smash the Giants on the ground. Absolutely, Zeke getting into a ton of my lineups. I believe he should be in a ton of your lineups as well already. Probably in close to 50-60% of my lineups, just because I think regardless of how this game script goes, Zeke is guaranteed to get his in this game. So we expect Dallas to be able to be super efficient on the ground with that 1 versus 29 matchup. But if we go over to the pass game, that is also stellar for Dallas. Number 9 in offensive pass protection, 30th for generating any sort of pressure on the quarterback for the Giants. I expect Dallas to be able to move the ball both on the ground and via the air. So Dak Prescott also in play. I believe he's going to be super popular this week just because the Giants are bad in general, and people are expecting this to maybe turn into a shootout. So keep that in mind. But Dak, Cooper, Lamb would be the two with the highest ceiling. Again, even the air game, Zeke, Tony Pollard, they get involved there. And then the tight end. So the Giants have given up a touchdown to the tight end every single week. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. Ian Hartitz or somebody had tweeted out, it was interesting that they had given up a tight end touchdown every week, but it was always to the backup tight end. And I don't remember who the Giants played each week, but it was essentially the backup tight end that went off. So Dallas has two decent tight ends. Schultz has been the one that has been getting the vast majority of the run. So could this be one of those Blake Jarwin touchdown or multi-touchdown games? Possibly. So keep that in mind. If you're going to run Dak out there, maybe try to get one of those Dallas tight ends there, since the Giants have just been getting dominated by the tight end position. Pick your poison on which one, Schultz or Jarwin, that you want in there. Jarwin's going to be a lot cheaper than Schultz just because he hasn't necessarily gone off for 2 touchdowns in a primetime game like Dalton Schultz did. So expect Dallas to score a lot of points against the Giants. Giants probably going to have to keep pace. Luckily for them, Dallas is actually pretty poor on the adjusted line yards for rushing, so Barkley might have a little bit more efficient week than he's used to, and then they do have a slight advantage in offensive pass protection, so Danny Dimes should have a few more split seconds to get these passes off, which should favor Galladay and Kadarius Toney. Not necessarily, he's more of an underneath guy, but Galladay getting deep and getting open would be good for Danny Dimes. So running Giants and Dallas is going to be pretty popular this week, and rightfully so. Again, that's the number 1 game total on the slate. Number 2 is Green Bay at Cincinnati, and I apologize, I didn't actually look at what the game numbers were before this. This is game number 9. Green Bay at Cincinnati, they are the second highest total on the slate at 50.5, and we see this is Green Bay at Cincinnati, and we're going to get into it in a little bit, but let's just... what was that? Green Bay 3-point favorites on the road at Cincinnati. We're going to get into it on the adjusted line play here, but I think this is an upset alert. So that's what this purge siren, upset alert. I think Cincinnati might actually take this game. They're going to give Green Bay a run for their money, and we'll go over the adjusted line play report and why that might be. So we're going to first look at the Green Bay end, since they are the away team. Also, I didn't say it on the New York Giants and Dallas game, but Dallas is 7-point favorites there, and that's a pretty significant. Let's bump that over. They're 7-point favorites at home, so a 29.5 point implied total, and the Giants with 22.5 there. So Green Bay, 26.8 implied total there, or almost 27. And then Cincinnati there at 24. But again, upset alert. Watch out for this one. Let's go over Green Bay. Offensive pass protection, 18th. Run blocking, 11th. They're not too bad on either end of those. Middle of the road, a little bit above average. But on the offensive pass protection, Cincinnati's middle of the road, slightly better. So don't expect Green Bay to have an absolute monster amount of time in the pocket for Aaron Rodgers. And then on the run blocking, yeah, they're top 11, almost top 10, but Cincinnati is actually number 5 on the adjusted line yards on defense. So I don't expect, even though Cincinnati has given up a lot of points to both the wide receiver and the running back this year, I don't expect Green Bay necessarily to be smashing Cincinnati over the head with their offensive game plan here. I do expect Green Bay to move the ball more efficiently through the air, just based off the adjusted line play report. I believe they're going to struggle a little bit in the run game, so don't expect as many don't expect a high run efficiency, I guess, from Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon when they're in there. Expect Green Bay to move the ball through the air, which is probably fortunate for Devontae Adams. He hasn't really had one of those mega producer games yet, and I think this is a spot where he's going to get right. Again, the run game's not great. they're going to move the ball through the air. So Devontae Adams, I believe he could be in for a smash spot here if he's going to get hyper-targeted. Generally, when there's a wash here, like 18-15, that's kind of a wash. There's no real advantage there for either team. It just ends up being whoever typically scores the fantasy points on that particular team. Again, this is going to be Devontae Adams in the pass game. With MVS injured, we did see last week that Randall Cobb got involved quite a bit. I expect that to not happen this week. Could it? Certainly, you can do a dart throw in there, but I would be more inclined to run an Allen Lazard out there. We've seen him have big games in the past too. So Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard in the pass game. If you want a tight end that's maybe not correlated, or if you're going to run an Aaron Rodgers stack out there and you want to correlate with the tight end, you can get Robert Tonyan. He hasn't done a lot this year, but he's also in play. And again, Aaron Jones is always involved in that pass game. So if they're not necessarily getting a ton of time, but a decent amount of time, we could see some screen plays or just dump offs to Aaron Jones as well. All those guys are kind of in play, but let's get on the Cincinnati side and to why I think this is the upset alert alarm that, hey, like if you're using Green Bay in your survivor pool, you might be purged this week from the survivor pool. So Cincinnati, number 9 in offensive run blocking. Green Bay is number 22 in the adjusted line yards on defense. I fully expect Cincinnati to be able to run the ball. And prior to this season starting, everybody kind of thought that Cincinnati was just going to be this super pass-heavy team because they were the last year and the year before, actually, prior to Burrow getting there. But they're just passing like gangbusters. Well, they've been running a lot this year. They got Frank Pollock, their basically run game coordinator now, and their offensive line coach back from the Jets this year. And I think he's a big locker room guy, and I think they're starting to focus more on that run. So expect Cincinnati to actually be able to run all over Green Bay. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Joe Mixon, questionable heading into this game. I believe with an ankle injury. It's not a significant ankle injury, but he might miss this game or be very limited. Big popular waiver wire pickups were Samaje Perine and Chris Evans to a lesser extent. Let's just keep this in mind. This is the number 2 50.5 point game total. If they're going to be more of a back and forth or scoring a decent amount of points here, or Cincinnati's trying to keep up with Green Bay, if you want to go that route, Chris Evans might be a very sneaky play. I believe both of those two are stone cold minimum on DraftKings, and likely they're pretty close to the bottom of the barrel, scraping the barrel for FanDuel as well. Chris Evans is probably down there, and Samaje Perine's actually scoring less fantasy points than him. So keep that in mind. They should have a pretty efficient day on the ground, and I could see this one where Cincinnati knows, hey, like we want to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. They've already shifted their offense from being more pass-heavy to a run-heavy system, or more of a run attack than they had last year anyway, by a significant margin. So I could see them thinking in their mind, hey, we're just going to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. We're going to slam the ball down their throat, and then Cincinnati kind of just dominates them via the run game, which will also open up some of those play-action passes for Burrow. And I just expect this to be close. Obviously, Vegas is already saying like a 3-point favorite for Green Bay there. Just watch out for that upset. I think it's going to be a very close game, kind of as Vegas is suggesting with the 3-point road favorite there for Green Bay. But I expect some people who put money on Green Bay winning this, or in your survivor pool, they're going to get a little hot and bothered with Green Bay choice there. So heads up, don't pick Green Bay for your survivor pool this week. Cincinnati, I believe, very in play for winning this game, actually. And they're 3-1. Green Bay 3-1 as well. So Cincinnati's pass protection 25, Green Bay 18 on the pass rush. It's kind of a wash. Cincinnati's not very good at offensive pass protection. Green Bay has lost some key players on defense, so they're not getting after the quarterback necessarily that well. And Jair Alexander might not play this week, which could also lead to more Cincinnati easier movement down the field, especially if they're going to be efficient on the ground. This should just open up the pass attack even more. Again, why I say Cincinnati is kind of the upset alert here. If you want to run a Joe Burrow stack out there, you can. If you think Green Bay is going to be able to kind of keep pace. Jamar Chase obviously in play there. T. Higgins should be coming back. Green Bay has been bleeding points to the tight end. So if you want that correlation, CJ Uzama, I believe, is a sneaky play this week, especially in GPP. No one's going to be playing him. Green Bay has given up points to the tight end position pretty significantly this year, so watch out for that. And that's game number 2, folks. Let's get on to game number 3, which is San Francisco at Arizona. It's one of these late games. So we actually have one less game on this slate this week because of the London game that is not on the main slate. That is left off, which is the Atlanta Jets game. So those people will not be in the adjusted line play, as well as Buffalo, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Baltimore on those later games. But San Francisco at Arizona, we have a 50-point game total with Arizona 5.5-point home favorites. We're going to start with San Francisco and look at their offense. Number 11 in offensive pass protection, Arizona number 10. That's a wash. San Francisco number 13 in run blocking, Arizona 25 against the rush. This leans towards San Francisco being able to run the ball a bit more efficiently. Still a lot of injuries for San Francisco on that running back squad. Elijah Mitchell, is he going to be there? Possibly. Otherwise, Trey Sermon, if he gets a full load, would definitely be in play here. It doesn't look like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play this week. Again, this is Friday morning. Jimmy Garoppolo's got to practice today and feel good about pushing off. Mike Shanahan said we got to see him being able to plant and drive the ball down the field. If he can't do that on Friday, he won't play. Then it'll be the Trey Lance show. So most likely it's going to be the Trey Lance show this weekend. Watch out for that. He did not look particularly good last week when he came in. Sure, he had a lot of rushing yards, and this is a fantasy show. He's going to generate fantasy points with the rushing attack. I just don't know how efficiently that line will actually, or how efficiently that offense will move with him not being able to complete passes very well, and especially with the offensive pass protection kind of being a wash. If he's not accurate or he's not getting completed passes, I don't know how they're going to move the ball that well. I expect Arizona, obviously, to win this game. So the pass game, I'd be looking to avoid for San Francisco. And really the rush game, just because it's kind of a question mark there. But if they're going to move the ball, it's going to be on the ground. Trey Lance might be an option if you want to run him naked. It might be an interesting choice if he runs in a few, if they only score 2 or 3 touchdowns and he runs them in and runs in 2 or 3 of them, or 2 and then passes for 1 to some no-namer. You could run a naked Trey Lance out there and score some fantasy points. He is cheap this week, so keep that in mind. That's pretty much the what I'm looking for from San Francisco. And then if he's going to be keeping it underneath, like Arizona, if they're getting after him, Deebo Samuel is more the underneath guy. Ayuk can also do that, but look for those, and Kittle kind of to get the target volume there if he's kind of under siege. Just I don't know how accurate those targets will be in this particular matchup. Then we move on to Arizona, and we look, with that being said, if he's going to be inaccurate, Arizona's defense is probably in play if they're going to get after him and cause some turnovers, get some sacks, interceptions, pick sixes, something like that. Arizona's defense would be in play. But we look, their offensive pass protection is 12th, San Francisco 17. Slight favor for Arizona there. Run blocking 16. San Francisco top 10 against the run. So don't expect Arizona to be able to move it on the ground that efficiently against San Francisco. They're going to have to go through the air, as we see here with the offensive pass protection being 12, San Francisco 17. Fully expect Arizona to put up points against San Francisco. They're probably going to do it with Kyler Murray. They're probably going to do it with DeAndre Hopkins and A.J. Green. Those seem to be the biggest beneficiaries. And we have seen so far 4 games, and every single one of them, A.J. Green has gotten 6 targets. So the guy is obviously involved. We haven't seen the blow-up game yet from DeAndre Hopkins, just like Devontae Adams. So expect DeAndre Hopkins possibly to have one of those 2 touchdown output weeks this week for Arizona. Otherwise, I think that's all the adjusted line play is really saying for us in this particular matchup. So we'll move on to the number 4th highest game total, which is Detroit at Minnesota in a dome, 49-point total. So we're already below 50 on the number 4 game. And as odd as it is, like these next few games that aren't the higher totals on the slate are the ones that I'm actually looking more for to hit the overs and to stack versus some of these earlier games. Just kind of a weird slate this week. But let's look at Detroit at Minnesota. Again, 49-point total. Minnesota, 7.5-point home favorites against Detroit. 28-point total there for Minnesota, one of the higher ones on the slate this week. Let's look at the away team. Detroit, offensive pass protection, 15th. Minnesota, number 5 on the pass rush. Expect Detroit to be somewhat under siege. They're a middle of the road or middle of the pack offensive pass protection. Minnesota's top 5. I expect them to be able to get after Detroit on the pass rush. A lot of sacks, potential strip sacks, fumble recoveries for touchdowns, interceptions because he's under pressure. So Minnesota's defense is in play here against Detroit. But let's look at what's good for Detroit. Offensive run blocking, 17. Minnesota, 30th. Expect Detroit to be able to move the ball efficiently on the ground. And now this week we just had the offensive coordinator, Anthony Lynn, over there in Detroit tell us he's going to take a hot hand approach. And he wishes he would have had Jamal Williams in there for other situations or more situations than he did last week. So this could be one of those sneaky Jamal Williams weeks where he ends up riding the hot hand. He gets 18 carries, maybe for over 100 yards and a touchdown in this particular matchup. Just be cognizant of that. Otherwise, we'll get into the Minnesota side here in a little bit. I think they'll be able to move the ball against Detroit. Everybody kind of has, even though these are washes on Minnesota side for offense. I believe they'll be able to move the ball. So it's going to lead to more pass attempts from Detroit. And if they are under siege, that's one thing. If your quarterback's under siege, they're looking to get the ball out quick underneath. That could be a DeAndre Swift. That could also be Williams getting some targets underneath those dump-offs. We've seen Goff really love that in the past already. And to go along with that, that's TJ Hawkinson territory underneath, maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not exactly sure how they've been deploying the Lions receivers. All I know is Quintez Cephas seems to be like the deep threat despite him running like a 4.7, like upper 4.7s or a 4.7 at the combine. He didn't seem like he was fast, but they use him more as a deep threat clasher, kind of like Mike Williams has been in the past few years. So keep that in mind on the Detroit side. Quicker passes, DeAndre Swift, maybe a lot of targets, Hawkinson a lot of targets, and possibly Williams as well. And expect if they're going with a hot hand approach on the ground, maybe Swift should be doing pretty well against Minnesota as well. So either one of those running backs is potentially in play. And probably not a lot of people are going to be playing them, and they could be a sneaky GPP play this week. On the Minnesota side, we have offensive pass protection number 3 versus Detroit's number 6 pass rush. That's kind of a wash, but Minnesota should be able to hold their own against Detroit's pass rush. Expect them to have time. Adam Thielen always in play, Justin Jefferson always in play, and Tyler Conklin at the tight end spot has shown some promise there. But if he's not under siege, I don't think Conklin's going to need to get some dump offs or quick targets out there. Unless you think the number 6 pass rush is going to overwhelm Minnesota, then perhaps Conklin's in play there, or Delvin Cook on the ground. Moving the ball via the air with Delvin Cook. And we see Minnesota's run blocking is actually 25th this year. Detroit, number 28, adjusted line yards. Minnesota should find themselves to be able to move the ball also on the ground more efficiently than what they're particularly used to against this Detroit squad, which is good. That could mean a Delvin Cook week. Unfortunately, he didn't even practice yet this week. Thursday came around. He hadn't practiced yet. I can't remember what happened last week. I thought he was practicing and then just couldn't go, or gave it a go but wasn't particularly useful and came out of the game with a re-aggravated injury there. So pay attention to that. Alexander Madison would definitely be in play if Cook is out. If Cook plays, he's obviously got the talent to smash Detroit. Just keep an eye on that. Both of those two are in play depending if one plays or not. So depending on if Cook plays or not. So if Cook plays, he's definitely somebody that you probably want in your lineup. If Alexander Madison, or if Cook doesn't play, you're going to want Alexander Madison. He's going to be a cheap option, especially if you're going to be running like DeAndre Hopkins. He's not super expensive this week, but getting more expensive, or Derrick Henry, CMC could be on this slate as well. So the cheaper option there if Madison is playing. Anyway, that's the number 4 game on the slate. The number 5 highest one is Tennessee at Jacksonville at a 48.5 point over-under. We have Tennessee at -4, which means Tennessee are 4-point road favorites. Hey, if you didn't watch the Week 4, I told you the New York Jets were going to give the Titans a run for their money, and if you pick the Titans in your survivor pool to beat the Jets, because the Jets had sucked so bad the previous 3 weeks before last week, I said, hey, watch out. Don't pick Tennessee in your survivor pool. You're going to be sweating that one out. I think the Jets could give Tennessee a run for their money. I know Tennessee is 4-point road favorites on Jacksonville. Jacksonville hasn't looked particularly great, but they have played some strong halves. They were leading Arizona, who is the only undefeated team. They were beating them at halftime, 14-0 or 14-7, something like that. Either way, they were beating Arizona at half. They came out in the first half against Cincinnati, who is 3-1, and we just talked about them in the Cincinnati-Green Bay game. They came against Jacksonville and Cincinnati Thursday night and looked very good against them as well. So upset alert for Tennessee Jacksonville. Jacksonville definitely could win this to get their first win under the Coach Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence era. With that being said, it sounds like Urban Meyer kind of lost the locker room there in Jacksonville, so I don't know how spirited Jacksonville is going to come out and play. But this is a get-right situation for them against a really bad Tennessee defense, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So Tennessee, number 29 offensive pass protection. Jacksonville, number 32 in the pass rush. Fortunately for Tennessee, they might not have as much pressure as they're used to because Jacksonville's defense is bad. The run blocking is a wash. So when it's a wash, we kind of expect the usual fantasy players to score points. Obviously, Derrick Henry against Jacksonville seems like a smash play. He's going to be in pretty much every cash lineup, and he's going to be in a lot of tournament lineups too, because people are going to think, shoot, this guy is going to score 2-3 touchdowns and get 150 plus yards. So keep that in mind. He's going to be super popular. Way to get contrarian. A.J. Brown carries no injury designation going into this week. He is no longer questionable. He practiced in full on Thursday. So with Tennessee being able to have a little bit more time than they're used to passing the ball, I could see this being one of those A.J. Brown monster weeks where, you know, he's getting 150, 200 yards and a couple touchdowns here while everybody's kind of holding the bag there with Derrick Henry. Keep an eye on A.J. Brown. Keep an eye on Ryan Tannehill in this particular matchup. You could get unique, do a Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry stack that does correlate to some success every once in a while, so keep that in mind as an option. And then let's look at the Jacksonville. So this is a 48.5 point total. I fully expect Tennessee to be able to move the ball in Jacksonville with these wash. I think they have the talent on their offense where these are a wash. Their talent's just going to overtake Jacksonville's talent on defense, and Henry and A.J. Brown and Tannehill will be able to find success moving the ball and score points. With that being said, Jacksonville number 3 in offensive run blocking, Tennessee 18. Jacksonville should be able to run the ball on Tennessee, no problem. Jacksonville number 7 in offensive pass protection, Tennessee 20th at the adjusted sack rate. Expect Jacksonville to be able to move the ball efficiently both on the ground and through the air. This 48.5 point total, assuming the weather is fine in Jacksonville, I would be betting the over on this. I think both teams are going to smash here. This is one of those popular game stacks for me. where I'm going to try to get quite a few pieces, or at least one piece on each side of this matchup into all of my lineups. So on the Jacksonville side, we have Trevor Lawrence definitely in play. They seem to be passing the ball like crazy in Jacksonville, even in the neutral situation. So watch out for that. Trevor Lawrence, we just saw the targets. DJ Chark went down for the season, so the target consolidation is going to happen in Jacksonville, which is going to mean more targets for Marvin Jones, more targets for Laviska Shenault, more targets for Dan Arnold at tight end, and probably more targets for the running backs there, which is probably James Robinson after his performance last week. He looked very good last 2 weeks, actually. So keep that in mind. I think this could be a Trevor Lawrence week. Pair him with Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault, or Laviska Shenault and Dan Arnold. One of those particular combinations, I think, is going to be very successful this week. And there was narrative that they're going to have Laviska Shenault's role grow and expand now that DJ Chark is out. So expect an interesting week from Shenault. He's going to be in a lot of my lineups. Marvin Jones is going to get in there as well. I'm going to have some Dan Arnold, and I'm also going to have some James Robinson just because I think Jacksonville's going to be able to move the ball in Tennessee pretty good. I could see him getting in the red zone and scoring a touchdown and having a pretty efficient week in general with the touches that he's going to get in that game. And I'm expecting it to hit the over, so this could be one of those sneaky ones where, we're sitting at the 5th highest game total, but I could see this one actually being the highest one on the main slate this week. Just keep that in mind. Very interesting game. Upset alert for Jacksonville. I think they're probably going to beat Tennessee, actually. Just the way this is going, I think they're going to move the ball efficiently on offense. I think their defense will be struggling, but it's going to be close. Jacksonville at home. Hopefully they have enough spirit after the craziness that went on this week with Urban Meyer. But yeah, I like this for DFS. I like it for just being a close matchup in your pick'em leagues, and maybe not picking Tennessee in your survivor pool. Just keep that in mind. Bang energy, fuel your destiny. There we go, folks. All right, let's get on to the next game. This is number 6. We'll be at halfway, actually, because there's just 12 games this week. It's Miami at Tampa Bay. Now, this is a very interesting one. This is actually game 3. Here's the London game up here, New York Jets at Atlanta. They are not on this particular slate. But Miami at Tampa Bay, 48-point game total, which is just below what we were looking at prior to this. Oh, man, 48.5, I believe, was the prior one. But we have Tampa Bay as 10-point home favorites against Miami. Expect them to blow them out. Let's look at the offense for Miami here. Pass protection, number 26. Tampa Bay, 29th at generating any pass rush on the quarterback, which is kind of weird because you think Tampa Bay elite defense, but it's all in the run game. So keep that in mind. Miami might be able to move the ball through the air a little bit easier than they're used to in this particular matchup. Run blocking, number 27 for Miami against Tampa Bay's number 2 adjusted line yards on defense there. Don't expect Miami to have any sort of ground game. Do not put Malcolm Brown into any lineups. Do not put Myles Gaskin into any lineups. Do not put Salvan Ahmed into any lineups this week, folks. Don't do it. Offensive pass protection, number 26. Miami should be able to move the ball through the air if they're going to move it at all for this 19-point total. So look for them to move the ball through the air. We saw Will Fuller go down with yet another injury. Imagine that. He's got a finger. I think he may have even went on IR. So, again, target consolidation for Miami. Jalen Waddle. Mike Gesicki's been getting a lot of targets there. He is a tight end that is definitely in play, especially if you think, which we do, Miami or Tampa Bay is going to score a lot of points this week. I think they're second highest on the team implied total, or the highest this week. So Tampa Bay is going to score points. Miami's going to have to pass it. Expect them to be able to move it more effectively than what they're maybe used to, just because Tampa Bay's pass rush is so poor at this point. So Jacoby Brissett passing it to Jalen Waddle, passing it to Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki. Those are the 3 plays I would have from Miami, especially if you're getting onto the Tampa Bay stack. So, like I said earlier in this, that's an interesting slate. So these top 3 games, I'm not super interested in playing as far as the Vegas total, but then we get into these middle tiers like the 4th, 5th, 6th game here on the slate. Miami, I'm looking at Tampa Bay. They're going to have a lot of fantasy success. I want them in a lot of my lineups. If you want to run it back with one of my Miami people, you can. Tennessee, Jacksonville, I expect to be good. Detroit, Minnesota, I expect a lot of good plays there. It's just an interesting slate here where some of these middle games, in the upper 40s might outproduce those higher 3 games as far as fantasy output this week. So let's look at that Tampa Bay side. On offense, they're number 6 in offensive pass protection against the 26th ranked pass rush of Miami. So that's a smash matchup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know Bruce Arians is the coach there. They love to air it out, or Bruce Arians loves to air it out. I expect this to be a Tom Brady game. Now, if you're privy to a lot of the DFS analysis going on during the week, a lot of the sharps are saying get Leonard Fournette into your lineup. Miami has been bleeding points to the running back. A part of that's just Miami's not a very good offense. So the opposition that they've been playing, they've also played Buffalo, New England, I think week 1. So they've had some teams that have put up some rush games against them that maybe wasn't particularly their game plan, or was their particular game plan going in. Tampa Bay, we see number 4 in offensive run blocking there against Miami, number 12. That's not as big as a mismatch as the pass game. So I know a lot of the sharps are saying get Fournette in there, and he is a quality play here with a 4-12 matchup. I just have to go with the narrative of Bruce Arians going to air it out against Miami. And I think that's just how they're going to move the ball. I think Tom Brady is in play here. Any of his pass catchers, really. So you're looking at Mike Evans, you're looking at Chris Godwin, and you're looking at Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is criminally cheap on DraftKings. He needs to get in your lineups on DraftKings, so look out for that. As far as the tight end, Cameron Brate, I believe, is a very good play this week. I expect him to score a touchdown against Miami in this particular matchup. Just keep that in mind. And then obviously, if you want to run Fournette out there, it sounds like a lot of the sharps are telling you to play Fournette, so he might be somewhat popular this week. And when people realize, Miami has been getting smashed at the run game, I don't know how much leverage you're going to get on the field with a Leonard Fournette play, especially in a GPP. And it makes me nervous to put him in on a GPP lineup when we see Tampa Bay's 6 versus 26. And we know that Tampa Bay is second in pass play percentage. The Fournette one makes me nervous, especially in GPP. A lot of people know Miami sucks. They're just bleeding points to the running back. So, smash Fournette, smash Fournette, smash Fournette. That's going to be what people are saying. I'm telling you, they're going to move the ball through the air. The adjusted line play report suggests that's going to be a little bit more efficient, and I just think Bruce Arians will do that. So, obviously, anybody's in play. Fournette could easily destroy as well, but a lot of the sharps are telling you Fournette. A lot of the newbies, I think, are going to see Miami's just getting destroyed by running backs and also play Fournette because game theory should say Tampa Bay is going to be leading. They're just going to run out the clock, blah, blah, blah. But that's not really Bruce Arians' style. I think they're going to have quite a few passing games. This could be one of those Tom Brady, 5 or 6 touchdown games, honestly. So keep that in mind. And running it back with Miami, if you think they're going to have to pass the ball a lot, Gesicki, Waddle, and Parker are in play there. So that's going to do it for the first half of this. Let's move on to game number 7. And a lot of these ones end up being disgusting. As I was doing this last night, I wasn't super excited for a lot of these games, which kind of sucks. You can get some narrative here for the Cleveland Chargers game. Both these offenses could be good. Both the defenses could be good. It's one of those that has a very high range of outcomes. This could end up being a shootout. This could end up being a 14-10 game. It could be 27-23, something like that. So It's just got a high range of outcomes. We do have a 47-point total on this, with the Chargers being 1.5-point home favorites. Very close game, according to Vegas. So let's look at the away team here. Cleveland, number 31 in offensive pass protection. The Chargers, number 9. So we have second to the worst Cleveland offensive pass protection. The Chargers, top 10 in defensive pass rush. Don't expect Cleveland to have a very good game through the air. This was the exact same scenario as last week with the Minnesota Vikings, and we saw what the Vikings did to Cleveland's pass game. It sucked. They ran the ball all over them, and as we saw earlier with Minnesota, they were actually pretty good with the pass rush. They were pretty bad on the rush defense. The Chargers are the exact same, so this could be a mirror game for Cleveland. They only scored 14 points last week. That makes me nervous. Chargers, I think, actually have a little bit better defense than Minnesota does even. So I fully expect Cleveland to be able to run the ball on the Chargers just like they were able to with Minnesota. Both Chubb and Hunt ended up having pretty decent days, but obviously they eat into each other's upside here. The interesting play, I think, is Hunt, though. We know Chubb, very talented, but doesn't get any pass work. If Cleveland's going to be under siege from the Chargers in their pass situations, I would expect Hunt to be in, first of all, on the pass situations, and if he's under siege, he's going to get some dump off. So Hunt's actually, I believe, the better play within this particular matchup over Chubb. But you can make a narrative where you think Chubb's just going to smash the Chargers because that's number 2 versus number 27 is such a high differential there. You could see one of those Chubb 2 monster touchdown runs of 50-plus yards in this particular matchup as well. Just don't expect Cleveland to move the ball through the air. Would be avoiding the pass game there altogether outside of Hunt getting some dump-offs. On the Chargers side, we see the offensive pass protection at number 8, which is pretty good, against Cleveland's number 3 pass rush. Cleveland has been pretty dominant the last 2 weeks. The first 3 weeks or so, they didn't look very good, so they might be gelling. However, the Chargers' offensive line is very good. I could see them easily negating what Cleveland has been doing on the pass rush side. So that's kind of a wash there. Offensive run blocking for the Chargers, number 12. Cleveland actually number 3 against the run. Don't expect the Chargers to move the ball on the ground very efficiently. Eckler had a pretty solid week last week, but I expect the Chargers to move the ball through the air. I do think their offensive line can handle Cleveland's D-line, and I think that's how the Chargers are going to move the ball. So Herbert passing it to Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jared Cook, Austin Eckler. Those are the plays that I would go for on the Chargers side, but I just don't see the upside in this particular matchup. We saw last week Cleveland only score 14 on the road at Minnesota. I don't expect them to score a whole lot of points, especially if their pass game is going to be this inefficient. Expect the run game to be quite effective, but if you're getting in third down situations, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 against this Chargers defense, I don't expect them to pick up a lot of these first downs, and I expect Hunt maybe to get quite a few targets. So I just don't like this particular matchup. I said it's got a wide range of outcomes. It could shoot out. It could be a defensive matchup. According to what the adjusted line play is playing, I think it's just going to end up being one of those like 21-17 games. Close, tough battle, but not one that you're going to like in DFS necessarily. I think that's my gut feeling on this, but obviously I believe these two offenses are capable of shooting out. I just don't think it's going to happen in this particular matchup. So let's go on to the number 8 highest total on the slate, which is Philadelphia at Carolina. This is an interesting game. Game number 4 up here. It's a 45-point game total with Carolina 3.5 point home favorites against Philadelphia. So Philadelphia, the away team, we're going to look at offensive pass protection, number 14 against Carolina's number 1 pass rush defense. Expect Jalen Hurts to be under siege and possibly making mistakes, getting sacked, getting fumbled. Carolina's defense definitely in play here. We look at Philadelphia's offensive run blocking, number 21. Carolina, top 10 at number 9. I don't think Philadelphia is going to move the ball very well in this particular matchup, which kind of sucks. I know a lot of people like Jalen Hurts, and he has scored a lot of points. I don't see that necessarily changing in this particular matchup. I think Hurts will get his ceiling is definitely capped based off of this information. Don't expect him to have a monster week like he did last week against Kansas City. I expect him fully to be under siege by Carolina. They're not going to be able to move the ball on the ground very well. So they're going to be playing the pass. Nothing's going to be open. That's going to lead to sacks for Carolina. It's going to lead to possibly strip sacks, fumble recoveries, interceptions, and Jalen Hurts maybe has a few turnovers that negates what he's going to do on the ground. Of course, if he's under siege, he's got the ability to scramble. So I expect him to have quite a few rush attempts in this game and maybe even 70 to 90 yards of rush yards in this particular matchup. But I don't see him having the upside. I think he'll have a turnover or two in here and not be able to move the ball very well through the air. So you're going to be glad in a redraft league if you started him that he gave you a top 15, 18 type week. He didn't submarine you just because of the rush yards. I just don't see him having upside. The pass catchers, if he's going to be under siege and dumping him off, that could be Dallas Goedert, that could be Zach Ertz, and that could be the running back, which is probably their new running back one. And no, that's not Miles Sanders. It is not Miles Sanders. That is actually Kenneth Gainwell that will be getting the receptions there for Philadelphia, as we have seen Miles Sanders' volume and play drop off pretty significantly there in favor of Kenneth Gainwell. So keep an eye on that. That's kind of the Philadelphia side. Not something I'm looking to play. Again, I don't think they're going to have a very good offensive output this particular game. Carolina's defense is in play because of that. And now let's look at their offense. Offensive pass protection, number 22 against Philadelphia's number 8 pass rush. That's kind of what makes me nervous about this Carolina game. They're number 22 in offensive run blocking, Philadelphia number 31, so I expect them to be able to move the ball on the ground pretty efficiently. If Carolina is stifling Philadelphia, I expect them to kind of just run out the clock. And we've seen CMC practice this week in limited fashion, so he actually might play in this particular matchup. If he does, I expect him to pretty much be who he always is every week. But he may be a limited, and if Philadelphia isn't scoring, that could lead to more Chuba Hubbard points in general. And if they're finding a little bit more success on the ground against this terrible Philly defense, it could be one of those Chuba Hubbard weeks. The offensive pass protection is just going to lead to more underneath passes for Carolina. DJ Moore has been that for them this year, so DJ Moore week again, or CMC, so keep that in mind. It's just a game that I'm not looking to attack. I don't think Philadelphia is going to put up a lot of points, and Carolina doesn't have very good matchups for themselves, so I don't expect them to necessarily be lighting it up on the scoreboard either. So as I had said, like those first 6 games are a lot of them high totals. The bottom half of those first 6 are very good matchups for adjusted line play, and it's a lot of these afterwards that just they seem like ugly games. So Philly, Carolina here also ugly. Let's get into the tied for 9th highest here. It's the first one we're going to go over is New Orleans at Washington. That's a 44.5 point game total with New Orleans as 2-point road favorites. It's a little interesting for me given this. Not necessarily that I'm going to say this is an upset alert because I think this is kind of a pick'em game, but New Orleans, we have at 23rd in offensive pass protection. Washington, number 28 on the offensive or the pass rush against the quarterback. Very interesting there. Washington just hasn't generated a lot of pressure, and they were just dominant last year. So that's interesting that they haven't really gotten after the quarterback. This could be one of those matchups where they actually do that against Jameis Winston and get some turnovers there. New Orleans has been running the ball like an insane amount for whatever reason. So we see them number 6 in offensive run blocking, but that's actually where Washington has been very good on the defensive front is they're number 8 in the adjusted line yards. So I don't expect New Orleans to be able to run the ball as effectively as they want. And in the pass game, they might find it a little bit easier, and Washington's secondary hasn't been very good. It's just New Orleans doesn't pass the ball hardly at all. I think they know what they have in Jameis Winston, and that's a lot of turnovers. So maybe Marquez Callaway or Marquez Callaway, however it's pronounced, Juwan Johnson as a dart throw tight end. in this particular matchup. Kamara obviously in play if you expect New Orleans to be under siege. Maybe he actually gets a target in this game. He hasn't been targeted a lot yet this particular year, though. It's just kind of a strange situation there. It's just an ugly thing. I don't necessarily like it for DFS. If I'm going to play anybody from New Orleans, I might have a one-off of Marquez Callaway. I don't think I'm going to put a lot of Kamara in my lineups just because he's expensive, and I just don't like the way this feels. So keep that in mind. Let's go on the Washington side. Offensive pass protection, number 2 versus New Orleans' 31st ranked pass rush. Fully expect Washington to be able to move the ball very effectively through the air. Terry McLaurin in play this week. We did see some injuries along the Diami Brown, I believe, had a knee issue. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I think he's just questionable. I don't think it's more towards the doubtful range. I think he just got a knee injury, and he's been limited or absent from practices here. The groin issue guy over there, we have seen just Curtis Samuel. He could be in play this week if they're going to be moving the ball effectively through the air, which I fully expect. So Heineke could be a sneaky play in this. I just don't like this particular total. It's a 44.5 point total. New Orleans didn't look very good on offense. On the offensive side, it was sketchy. Washington should be able to move the ball via the air with New Orleans being 31st there and Washington number 2. So I think Washington's actually going to win this game against New Orleans. But like I said, I don't think that's necessarily calling for the upset alarm. But Washington, I do believe, will beat New Orleans in this particular matchup, just based off of them being able to move the ball through the air. So Terry McLaurin week. Ricky Seals-Jones, I believe, is going to be the tight end there with Logan Thomas out, so keep an eye on that. Washington, number 15 in offensive run blocking. New Orleans, number 4. So that's kind of a smash spot for New Orleans defense against the Washington run game there. I don't expect Gibson to be very efficient on the ground. So hopefully with the pass protection the way it is, Gibson can maybe get a wheel route down the sideline and get a big play on offense for the pass game. I just don't see the run game being very good for him this week, which is unfortunate, dude. I thought he was going to be Smash City this year, and so far it hasn't been very good. Let's get on to the other tied for 9 at 44.5, and that's Chicago at Las Vegas. It's down here, one of the evening games. So we have a 44.5 point total, as I said. Las Vegas is 5.5 point home favorites. We know Justin Fields is starting in this, and we're going to look at the Chicago offense to begin with. Number 32 in offensive pass protection. A lot of that was the Cleveland game. They looked a little bit better last week. Las Vegas doesn't generate a whole lot of pass rush against the quarterback, so this could be decent for Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney connections. As we saw last week, that was kind of where he was going. Allen Robinson, not particularly well, but the dude's got talent. If he's got time, he should be able to get open, and hopefully Justin Fields can boost him up this week. Maybe he can boost Mooney and Robinson, but I don't know about that. On the run blocking side, we have Chicago at number 20, Las Vegas at number 14. So again, Chicago's behind the ball on both of those aspects. Expect Chicago to move the ball a little bit more effectively through the air against Las Vegas in this particular matchup. On the ground, they're going to have Damian Williams, and I think Vegas's defense isn't that bad. They got a lot of pieces this offseason. I don't expect Damian Williams to have that good of a game in this situation. This game environment isn't very good, and they're going to be behind. He might get a few more targets, especially if Chicago's under siege. It's just, I don't think Justin Fields is necessarily looking to dump it off to the running backs all that often. Just keep that in mind. So on the Las Vegas side, again, Chicago, not super interested in a lot of their players, but I went over those. Las Vegas, we're looking at offense, number 21 in offensive pass protection. Chicago, number 2. Chicago could be a sneaky play this week on DFS for getting after the quarterback, maybe generating some turnovers on Carr, sacks, whatever of that nature. The run blocking, Las Vegas 28, Chicago 21. Las Vegas might find themselves a little bit more effective on the ground than what they're used to, but Josh Jacobs, I don't think he's very good, and he's kind of splitting work with Kenyon Drake. So both of those two are kind of out of the question unless you think Drake's going to get some dump-off passes. with the shorter passes, that's probably going to be your Hunter Renfrow, that's going to be your Darren Waller, and that's going to be your Kenyon Drakes. Those guys, I think, are going to get the vast majority of the targets here. So keep that in mind. Just not a game that I'm looking to get a lot of pieces on. Again, a lot of these second half ones are disgusting. Let's get on to the tied for the 11. So there's 2 more games here, and these ones are really bad. So 44.5 game totals here, and then we drop down to the tied for the bottom 2. Actually, is New England at Houston and Denver at Pittsburgh with 40-point game totals. This is truly horrible, and I think I heard this morning this Denver at Pittsburgh game might even be like 39.5 at this point. So let's look at that game first. So Denver at Pittsburgh, again, 40-point game total. We have Pittsburgh 1-point home favorites against Denver. Denver's offensive pass protection, number 27, Pittsburgh 22. That's kind of a wash. It seems like Teddy Bridgewater is trending towards being able to play in this particular game. If he doesn't, expect Pittsburgh to actually, their defense should just dominate Denver. I don't expect Denver to be able to move the ball very well on the ground against Pittsburgh. They're number 19 in run blocking. Pittsburgh's number 11 against the run. I don't particularly see how Denver is going to score even 20 points in this game. I think even 40 points might be too much for this particular matchup, especially if Drew Lock plays. On the Denver side, maybe the only play I would be looking at is Cortland Sutton if you think he's going to get all of the targets, maybe a Noah Fant. If you think they're going to get all of the targets and maybe score a touchdown, or hope Denver scores 2 touchdowns and they're the ones that get it, I wouldn't be looking to play either Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon in this particular matchup. It's kind of gross. On the Pittsburgh side, we see their offensive run blocking, number 32, versus Denver's top 10 unit, number 7. Don't expect anything from Najee Harris on the ground, which has been the case. Najee Harris not getting anything on the ground, but via the pass attack is where he's making up his hay. So Pittsburgh, number 10 in offensive pass protection. Denver, number 11 in generating a pass rush. Expect that to be a wash. The usual for Pittsburgh, that's going to be Deontay Johnson, that's going to be Najee Harris, and maybe Juju Smith-Schuster sprinkled in there. Otherwise, not super interested in this game. 40-point game total, maybe even bet down since the beginning of the week. Don't like it. And the last matchup, New England at Houston, 40-point game total. New England actually 9-point road favorites. The best play in this particular matchup is actually going to be New England's defense. It's just Houston's ugly. They're starting Davis Mills, and this is all narrative based anyway. So New England, we have offensive pass protection number 19, Houston number 23. That's kind of a wash. Jacoby Myers probably in play, and the only guy I would be looking to play for New England's pass attack. New England number 30 in offensive run blocking, pretty poor, but Houston is bottom of the barrel at number 32. So New England should be able to move the ball on the ground. I expect them fully to be able to move the ball effectively on the ground, and then maybe, sprinkle in some Mac Jones confidence against that Houston team as they're just getting dominated. But don't expect this to be a game that I'm looking to get any pieces of in DFS. There's certainly Damian Harris and Jacoby Myers viable in your redraft leagues, especially the deeper ones. And New England defense. So we look at Houston offensive run blocking number 31, New England number 24. Houston might be able to run the ball a little bit better than they're used to on New England. I just don't expect them to have a ton of rush attempts because Davis Mills will probably be turning the ball over. Houston's number 17 in offensive pass protection, New England number 12. Again, it's going to be the usual suspects for Houston, if anyone. It's going to be Brandon Cooks. That's the only play from Houston. New England is pretty much the defense. Maybe I've been seeing some Damian Harris love this week against Houston just because their defense is so bad, but it's not something that I'm going to be getting a lot of for DFS. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for the Week 5 DFS slate. Again, fueled by Bang Energy, fuel your destiny. Hopefully we can go out in Week 5 and smash. Again, it's an interesting slate. Very successful last week on Week 4. We're just going to get more successful as this goes on. Again, smash the subscribe button for the adjusted line play report on DFS. This is something that should be in your weekly DFS tool bag for something that you're listening to. Gives you a unique perspective and we absolutely dominate as the year goes on. So keep that in mind. Smash subscribe on the YouTube. Again, follow us on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy and at Todzilla1337. Thanks for watching, folks. That's going to do it for this show. Let's go win some money together. Woo!